But 2:11 a.m., she entered, hair impeccably styled, eyes bright and attentive, one hand clutching her shoes, the other her phone. She momentarily paused, as if anticipating a response, ready with whatever tale she'd spin if I dared inquire. Yet she shouldn't have looked so put together following a girls' night out. Quietly, she moved across the living room, depositing her keys into the bowl by the stairs, and leaned over to kiss me. Her lips touched mine casually, almost mechanically, like a completed task from countless times past. I remained still, merely observing her, committing her visage to memory, the subtle details I'd been oblivious to for months, lipstick smudges not from wine sipping. Her hair was slightly disheveled at the back, as if someone had rested their hand there, a faint, bitter whiff of cologne that wasn't mine. She settled next to me on the couch, began idly scrolling on her phone, legs crossed neatly as if all was well in our world. I grabbed my phone, hit play on the voice memo app, and the audio played slowly at first, filled with static, rustling bedsheets, a deep, confident, familiar male voice. Then came Jessica's voice, breathless and vibrant, saying things she hadn't uttered to me in ages. She froze, her thumb still hovering over the screen. Her face remained expressionless for a moment, but I could see a tiny crack and barely perceptible flicker in her eyes. It was shock, recognition, fear. I paused the audio. She blinked slowly, twice, then squinted as if trying to figure out the best lie to tell. "Are you spying on me now?" she asked, not bothering to disguise the venom in her tone. I remained silent, merely watching her like a man watches when the last moments before a dam bursts approach. She rose from her seat and began pacing, mumbling to herself. I caught phrases like invasion of privacy and "you're sick," along with a few other jabs meant to turn the tables. Old tactics such as gaslighting, deflecting, and attacking. Dear friends, if you enjoy this story, please like and subscribe to our channel. It will motivate us to make more videos like this for you. In my possession was an entire collection of them, each tool familiar to me, yet this instance bore no resemblance to previous instances. It wasn't about missed birthdays or prolonged evenings out. This was betrayal, meticulously captured, time-stamped, and reverberating within the walls of the home I purchased, the home I crafted for her, for us, for our children. Her pacing ceased abruptly. She turned to confront me. It signified nothing. I chuckled. She detested it when I laughed that way. She would often tell me it sent shivers down her spine because it sounded empty, as if something within me was damaged. Perhaps she was correct. Perhaps something within me had fractured. Perhaps it shattered the moment I identified the man in the recording, Brian, as the same individual who aided in moving our newly purchased washing machine into the garage only last month. The same person who flashed his obnoxiously sincere teeth at me and asserted, "You're fortunate, Jess is quite the catch." I leaned back, gazing at her as if she were a stranger, because she was no longer the woman I wed. She was no longer the woman I knew. She had transformed into something different, something more icy and ravenous. "I'm aware of the hotel," I murmured softly, draining the color from her face instantly. I had her cornered. "You believe there was only one recording?" She remained silent, as she understood. Slowly she resumed her seat, mirroring a mourner settling into place, and I allowed the silence to grow sharp teeth. For exactly 17 seconds, she sat rigid on the edge of the couch cushion, gazing at the floor as if blinking repeatedly could make the moment vanish. But it didn't. I remained. The recording continued to resonate in the room corners, even though I had paused it. The laughter from that hotel room, hers and his, still echoed above the silence between us, more powerful than ever. "Did you go through my things?" she eventually asked. Not an apology, not a plea for understanding, not even a false remorse. I showed no reaction. "No, not those either. You trailed me." Her gaze shifted abruptly, eyes sharp as a trapped animal recognizing the predator was not bluffing. I moved closer, placing my elbows on my knees. 3 nights passed, another girls' night out, and you weren't with Melissa, were you? I activated my phone again and pressed a picture. There she was, vivid as crystal. Monica in the hotel lobby, wearing that maroon dress she claimed was for special occasions. Brian beside her, too near, his hand on her back as if it belonged there, her grinning like someone who hadn't pretended all night. I switched to the next photo, them at the bar, then the elevator, and finally, him brushing his hand across her hip as she inserted the key card into room 417. She fixed her gaze on the screen, neither blinking nor uttering a word, before gradually putting on an act. Her voice dropped to a lower register, intended to deceive. It wasn't supposed to transpire like that. I chuckled once through my nose. You're referring to that moment when he was able to reach out to you while I was busy preparing dinosaur nuggets for our children at home? That hurt. She averted her gaze and dabbed the corner of her eye, implying tears. But there weren't any, not genuinely. Then she switched tactics. You've changed, she said. You no longer communicate with me. You don't look at me as you used to. I feel neglected. And there it was, the predictable deflection. Turn the focus back on me. I stood up, maintaining my voice tone but delivering each word more pointedly. So, your response was to share a bed with Brian? Her mouth opened in disbelief. No words, I continued. While I was coaching Liam's soccer team, while I was working extra hours to cover your mother's physical therapy costs, while I was sacrificing social engagements to stay home and reconnect because you mentioned we were growing apart, I paced the room once before stopping. I asked you twice if anything was amiss. You asserted, "Don't be overly suspicious." Upon standing, not for remorse or supplication, but combat, she uttered a sentence I'd forever engrave. Perhaps if you weren't so mundane, I wouldn't have sought solace elsewhere. My gaze locked with hers. My jaw tightened to the point where it seemed something in my cheek cracked. This was it. The instant when everything inside me turned stone still. The silence that only descends after something irrevocably shatters. And she sensed it. She read it in my expression. The light faded, the heaviness intensified. For the first time that night, she appeared afraid. She retreated, a mere step, yet its message was crystal clear. She knew she had trespassed, and there was no retracting. Yet still, she attempted to hide it. I didn't intend that, she whispered. I didn't budge. Jess? I questioned. Do you truly listen? She crossed her arms, ensconced in the silk robe she donned following late nights. Once read, I thought it was seductive. Appeared as a disguise, an item taken from the person she once portrayed, or maybe she had never truly embodied that persona at all. I didn't intentionally do it, she said, softer now. It transpired on its own. No, it didn't. I shook my head and moved closer. You selected it. You chose every text message, every time you departed from this house with a falsehood on your lips. You chose him, repeatedly. Her eyes flitted about the room as if seeking an escape route, a secret door concealed behind the bookshelf that might allow her to flee without repercussions. I was unhappy, she murmured, and you never expressed it. I tried. No, you deceived. And with that, the argument dissipated from her. Her shoulders drooped, hands hanging loosely by her sides. The performance was over. No more justifications, no more feigned tears. What's next? She inquired. My throat constricted, because the reality was I was uncertain. I had spent 12 years constructing this life with her. Our lives were punctuated with routines, inside jokes, a universe built on mutual memories. Now it felt like watching someone else's movie in reverse, dismantling scene by scene until nothing was left but white noise. I don't know yet, I replied. She took her seat again, this time slower, more cautiously, as if afraid of stirring the being she believed she had awakened. However, I wasn't angry anymore. I was something indifferent, detached. I want to see the kids, she blurted out, striking me harder than anything else that night. The idea that she thought she could simply restore things to normalcy as if nothing had transpired. They're asleep, I said. She looked bewildered. But I am their mother. Precisely, I retorted. So act like it. Then I strode into the kitchen, lifted the cabinet above the fridge, and removed an envelope. Thick, heavy, filled with screenshots of printed conversations, dates, timestamps, hotel receipts, messages between her and Brian. I placed the letter containing her comment. He's too dumb to ever figure it out, on the coffee table. She didn't touch it. I picked up my keys. Where are you headed? She questioned. Out, I replied. To get some fresh air. She stood up. You can't just abandon me. You left first, I responded. You kept coming back. I departed, leaving her behind in the peaceful yet unfamiliar house. The night air remained warm, lingering from the day's warmth. I slid into the car, ignited the engine, and simply sat there for a moment, hands tightly gripping the steering wheel, scarcely moving, barely breathing. The garage light still glowed brightly. Through the window slats, I could observe her pacing once more, possibly rehearsing her next words, perhaps contemplating how much more she had revealed to me. She often underestimated me, considering me too subdued, kind, and trusting. While she wasn't mistaken before, tonight she provoked a different person within me. I hadn't realized my destination until I stopped outside Derek's house, my friend from high school who knew Jess almost as long as I did. Derek blinked groggily before noticing my expression and asking, "Are you okay?" I handed him the envelope. 10 minutes later, he set it down without speaking. His mouth was a stiff line, his jaw clenched as if suppressing anger. "Jesus," he finally said. "How long has this been going on?" "For months," I replied. He nodded slowly twice. "And it's Brian?" I remained silent, and he already knew the answer. I never liked that guy. No one did. We sat in silence for a while. The ticking clock filled the room like a countdown to an event no one was prepared for. "Are you staying here tonight?" he asked. "I'm not sure. You should. It would be better." Derek seemed about to defend or confront, possibly even lash out. Yet he held back, knowing I wasn't prepared for the escalation of anger into turmoil. He departed, leaving me alone. The living room was dark now, and she sat huddled on the couch, as if trying to minimize her size. She remained silent when I entered, neither inquiring about my whereabouts nor expressing any concern. Instead, she watched me like a spirit haunting the remnants of a life we both contributed to shattering. I bypassed her, ascending the stairs, ensuring the kids were asleep soundly. Their countenances were peaceful, their toys serving as makeshift protective barriers. I lingered there, allowing guilt an opportunity to creep in, listening to that inner voice suggest, "Perhaps you should pardon her." In the depths of my being, that sentence echoed. Downstairs, I returned, finding her still vigilant. "Would you care to converse?" she inquired. Remaining silent, I instead ventured into the spare room, shutting the door and locking it behind me, drifting off alone for the first time in 12 years. As dawn approached, I awoke before sunlight. The quiet in that chamber felt altered, more pronounced, alien. Empty space beside me. No lingering scent of her perfume on the linens. Just the low rumble of the AC and the groan of wood under the burden of unmade choices. For a fleeting instant, I wished it was all an intricate delusion. That upon opening the door, I'd step back into our room, finding Jessica nestled beneath the blankets, murmuring her half-awake babble as she once did. But I knew better. For some time, I perched on the bed's edge, my hands dangling between my knees, studying the floor as if it held answers. Then came a gentle, hesitant knock. Upon opening the door, she was there, in her robe, arms folded tightly against her chest. She seemed altered now, less composed, more authentic, or perhaps merely unveiled. Her armor bore cracks. "I didn't sleep," she admitted. "I didn't respond." She shuffled. "Can we discuss things before the children wake up?" And so we settled at the kitchen table, a distance apart. This was the same table where we had plotted birthday parties, signed permission slips, and debated bills. Today it felt like a battlefield, a neutral one perhaps. Yet the tension was palpable. "I'm unsure of what to say," she started. "Try honesty." She flinched. "I'm not in love with him," she revealed. "That doesn't assist. I never ceased loving you." I gazed at her intently. "You demonstrated your affection rather unconventionally." Her eyes filled with tears, but I could no longer trust them. I had witnessed her crying after sending him a goodnight text once. On the phone bill, I found the proof. Emotions no longer held any value now. "I felt isolated," she murmured softly. I yearned for sensation once more. "You could have told me," she said gently, a hint of regret in her voice. I hadn't thought she would. That momentary pause echoed within me, stirring memories of us. A time when she felt unacknowledged and I felt unnecessary, neither of us expressing our feelings aloud. A mountain of unsaid words stacking up in the silence. But she chose him regardless, inviting him into our lives. Across the table, her fingers touched mine briefly. "I want to make things right," she whispered. For a fleeting moment, I felt the pull of memories, promises, and the responsibility of 2 sleeping children overhead. However, the envelope, the hotel, her voice over the phone, it all came rushing back. "I'm not sure if this can be mended," I replied. Silence ensued as she withdrew, her eyes reflecting a shift, as if constructing another narrative where she was the victim. She questioned me. "Is that it? You're surrendering?" I replied, No, not giving up, merely acknowledging it. Without another utterance, she rose and left the room, an action I didn't pursue for the first time in years. By mid-morning, Liam entered the kitchen, his tiger toy trailing behind him. "Dad, where's Mom?" he asked, rubbing an eye. Caught off guard, I remained motionless. She was upstairs, most likely deleting messages and attempting to regain control before the situation spiraled out of hand. However, to Liam, she was simply his mother, pancake maker, hug giver, bedtime story reader. "She's preparing herself," I replied. "Fancy some waffles?" Overjoyed, he beamed like it was Christmas. "With the whipped cream," I agreed, "and all the trimmings." We dined at the table, and for a brief moment, I resided in a functioning version of my life. Waffles, laughter, syrup-smudged countertops. He asked if we could construct a fort later. I consented. Today, uncertainty lingered about our future dwelling, but Jessica appeared ordinary downstairs. With jeans, a hoodie, and tied-up hair, she seemed untroubled. She avoided my gaze and moved with unfamiliarity in the kitchen. I observed as she made coffee, heard the metallic sound of a spoon striking against the mug, noticed her silence about my sleep. The silence between us was heavy, though the children were blissfully ignorant, chattering about cartoons and dinosaur battles. I allowed their conversation to continue. At 11:03 a.m., Jessica privately addressed me. "We must decide our course of action." I managed a quiet chuckle. "Interesting. That's precisely what I suggested 6 months ago. You simply didn't hear me." She remained silent. Her gaze fell to the floor, as if she couldn't stand my presence any longer. Then she admitted it. I had informed Brian our relationship was terminated. My jaw tightened at her words. Should I express gratitude? She retreated, as though I had struck her. "I'm attempting to rectify the situation," I stated. Yet there was no mending for a home consumed by internal flames. One could perhaps salvage a structure, but the walls forever bear the scars of the blaze. I disclosed the truth. "I've consulted a legal advisor." Her eyes widened in surprise. "You're not joking, right?" "Indeed," I replied. "Gone." She folded her arms, once more defensive. "So that's it? You're abandoning our family?" "No," I said. "You did that long ago. I'm simply joining you later." I departed the room. Her voice trailed off, but behind me I sensed the fury brewing beneath her gentle facade. Not sorrow, not remorse, rage, for she was losing grip. On me, on the narrative, on how she'd rewrite it for her peers when portraying the wronged spouse, and I no longer cared. Let her play her part. The truth would prevail. In response, she started her usual routine of overcompensation. That day, the house transformed into a stage. Dishes were polished, laundry arranged, children excessively amused. She seemed omnipresent, providing treats, engaging in games, chatting with the pet as if living a heartwarming family sitcom scene. But it was all an act. There wasn't a single instance of genuine remorse shown towards me. No confessions, no deeper revelations, just superficial repairs like a new coat of paint concealing a crumbling structure. I watched silently as the children were oblivious to it all, considering it just another weekend. Jessica even proposed a movie night as in days past. I declined, stating my engagements. Her smile faltered. After the house grew quieter with the kids asleep, I sat in the garage with the door slightly ajar, allowing the cool night breeze to enter. I didn't wish for her proximity. Not at all. Yet she emerged nonetheless. "Can we discuss like adults now?" she queried. I remained silent. She took it as consent. I never intended to stray with Brian. It wasn't premeditated. It was a moment of weakness. Loneliness played its part too, along with some simmering resentment. She appeared to seek empathy, but I remained quiet. She persisted, stating that you no longer touch or gaze at her, suggesting a withdrawal. It seemed as if you had ceased picking her. Upon looking up, she confessed, "I ended it." You retorted, "No, Jess, I did." The moment she called him baby in your home was the second I walked away. The voice she used for him, that's the one she hadn't addressed to you in years. Her jaw tightened at your words. "You think I didn't notice your change?" she asked, referring to your coldness following phone notifications and showering before girls' nights instead of after. "You're not very subtle, Jess. You believe I'm too slow to understand, but it seemed she finally lost control. Fine. If you wish to portray me as the antagonist, do so. However, I wasn't alone in negligence. Understand?" The anger erupted, shattering the facade she had been maintaining. So, tell me, what actions of mine deserve hotel stays? Deceit? And Brian slipping out while I took our daughter to ballet classes. She hesitated to speak, for there was no response to that question. Only remorse, and the oppressive burden of her own actions filled the void. I re-entered the house, leaving her outside in the dark, because lies belong in such places. The following morning, she did not emerge from the bedroom. Not when the children scattered cereal on the floor, not when the dog vomited on the rug, not even when Liam knocked over the autumn-purchased lamp and sobbed, thinking he'd destroyed Mom's most cherished item. Behind a locked door, she concealed herself, hoping the tempest would abate on its own. Alas, it persisted. I handled the debris, prepared breakfast, and dressed the children. This was not a mindless routine for me this time. I undertook these tasks to reaffirm what was still tangible, what held significance. The house now bore the semblance of a museum. Portraits of a cheerful family adorned the walls, trapped within each frame like snapshots in time. My gaze lingered on the one from last Christmas. In it, Jess embraced me, her cheek pressed to mine. Yet I vividly recalled the day she departed shortly after we unwrapped our gifts, citing a need to check on her mother. She didn't. By the time she reappeared downstairs, it was close to noon. Her hair was well-groomed, her sweater pristine, her face betraying no signs of the previous night's altercation, except for her eyes. They were swollen and red-rimmed, yet she held herself erect, as if someone who hadn't set fire to the house. "May we converse?" she inquired once more. I nodded in affirmation. She wasn't choosing to, but felt compelled to discern her current state of mind, the new reality she aimed to present. A different version of truth she planned to offer me this time. We found ourselves sitting opposite each other in our sunroom, a neutral territory, the same location where we celebrated our anniversary last year. She seemed to be searching for strength within the surroundings. "I've been researching therapists," she disclosed. "Couples therapy, or even individual sessions for myself. I need to comprehend why things escalated so significantly." "It wasn't that you allowed it to escalate," I corrected. "You propelled it to this stage." She winced, but didn't dispute my statement. "I aim to improve," she confessed. "For you, for the children, and for myself. I should have experienced something different then, hope or relief. But all I felt was exhausted." "Are you regretful?" I questioned. "Because of the pain you caused me? Or because you were discovered?" She hesitated, then remained silent. "I'm not sure if I can regain trust in you," I admitted. "And without that, there's nothing left intact." It was only then that tears finally surfaced. Authentic now, yet it was past the point of such valuables. The balance was negative. She stretched her hand across the table, quivering slightly. "I miss you," she murmured softly. I studied her hand and then her face, responding with the truth that remained. The subsequent days became a tranquil turmoil. There was no shouting, no more sleepless disputes, no begging or door slamming. Instead, there was a chilling, calculated calmness between us, as if two individuals were circling the remnants of a burning structure, feigning obliviousness to the smoke. We operated like colleagues, proficiently, impersonally. We shared childcare duties, prepared dinner in silence, exchanged responsibilities like shift workers. The children observed this. Liam questioned me that night. "Why does Mommy only smile when we're watching?" I didn't have a response. I simply kissed his forehead and assured him there was no need for concern. But within me, I recognized he was already anxious. And then, Sunday arrived. That morning in the living room, Jessica entered with her phone, her face indecipherable. Her thumb trembled above the screen. She seemed to weigh a confession against a grenade as she looked at me. "I have something to tell you," she said. I remained silent. She extended the phone. It displayed a message. "Brian again. I miss your lips. Do you think he doesn't suspect anything?" I waited 2 weeks before playing the recording. When I looked at her, she was ashen, bordering on gray. Her breaths were shaky. "I hadn't ended it when I claimed to have done so," she admitted. "I had told you I did," she said. "But I didn't." A single blink from me and the truth was out. The second deception, the one that followed remorse, the one that showed she hadn't stumbled, but dove. "You lied again," I stated. "After giving you an opportunity to be truthful, you lied again." Her voice faltered. "I didn't want to lose you. You already have." And then I stood up, without hesitation this time. "Depart you must," I stated. She stiffened. "What? I won't continue with this any longer. The therapy discussions, the feigned rebuilding, the acting. I'm finished. We have children. I won't take them from you. But our home? Our partnership? It's over." She recoiled as if struck. For a brief moment, I saw not just fear or sadness, but panic. Not because she had lost me, but because she had lost control, because now I was the one leaving. "You can't do this," she murmured. "You're simply going to abandon everything we have built?" I retorted, picking up my coat. "You already have," I said, departing. "I'm just no longer standing in the ruins." She remained there. No shouting, no final words, only the echo of a door closing behind the last deception. "Then you should not have let me go." I drove. No destination, no music. Just the engine's drone and the persistent hum in my chest that wouldn't cease. A multitude of emotions vying for space, grief, rage, disbelief, and beneath it all this strange feeling of lucidity. For the first time in months, or perhaps years, I experienced the ability to truly inhale. The mist had cleared. There was no more feigning or questioning. Jessica had played her last card. It wasn't regret, it was dominance. And when dominance failed, she resorted to fear. Fear of separation, fear of me leaving, fear of facing the mirror alone. She didn't miss me. She missed the persona that thrived in my forgiveness. I found myself at the lake, the one close to my parents' old cabin. I sat on a bench by the water until the sun began to hide behind the trees, and I contemplated the boy I was before her, before marriage, before deceit. He would have despised this cautious, weary, broken version of me. But he would have been proud too. Because I left. Upon my return, the house was silent. She was packing. I didn't assist. I didn't converse. She walked past me with a box in her arms, pausing by the door as if seeking a moment, a final act, perhaps some poetic conclusion. Never offered her anything, not through malice, but compulsion. She departed without fuss or final words, just the grumbling of her car moving away. I ascended to check on the children. They were asleep, serene, unaware. I sat by their door and allowed the realization to wash over me. 12 years vanished. Not in a second, but through countless cracks I hadn't noticed before. Now I was alone, but liberated, shattered, yet authentic. And amidst the wreckage, I discovered something I had not felt in a while. A new start. Monday arrived as usual with its 6:30 alarm and kitchen toast. The kids argued over who would brush their teeth first, but this time there was no figure in the hallway. No anxious atmosphere when steps descended the stairs. Jessica had left, not merely physically absent. The toxicity had been excised. What remained wasn't sorrow, it was stillness, an unfamiliar, painless quiet. I sought solace in my car after dropping off the children at school, observing other parents hurrying past as if they had life perfectly under control. I no longer needed to put up pretenses myself. By midday, I found myself facing my attorney across his polished desk, complete with a penthouse office and gold cufflinks. He was merely an ordinary man in a brown coat, who glanced at the folder I presented and affirmed that it held more than sufficient evidence. The messages, the records, the audio files. He inquired if I wished to contest for full custody. I declined, not quite ready yet. She was a poor spouse, but a good mother. However, I made it crystal clear that I would safeguard the kids with every fiber of my being. He asked if I desired the house. I confirmed, for it was mine. I had decorated its walls, constructed the playset, rewired the lights, and paid the mortgage while Jessica was absent, texting Brian from a parking lot. This dwelling wasn't merely a place, it served as proof. I demonstrated my presence, loyalty, and effort. That night, I received a message from her, hoping one day you'll forgive me. I pondered over it for a while, drafted replies, then discarded them both. Instead, I undertook an uncommon act I hadn't done in years. I read a book, savored tea, and listened to the wind as if it held significance. I wasn't completely healed, but I was on the road to recovery, something I hadn't experienced in a while by not replying to her message that night, or subsequent ones, or ever. Forgiveness isn't a thing you grant like a receipt. It's something earned. She forfeited the chance to earn it the moment she opted for a lie rather than an open discussion. The days stretched into weeks, and the children adapted quicker than anticipated. They inquired about her whereabouts, and I offered them a truthful but softened explanation. Mom required some time, and she's residing elsewhere. Despite her actions, she continues to care for you. Even though I harbored intense resentment towards her actions, I refused to turn the children against her. Bitter feelings corrode everything eventually. She began taking them during weekends, always on time, always courteous. Her excessive smiling at pickups suggested she was trying to win back the position of wife through audition-like behavior. However, she didn't seek another conversation because she understood the door was shut. I concentrated on rebuilding. The house became quieter yet lighter. I redecorated the living room, removing photos that made me wince with pain, and hung up new ones. Images of me and the kids in the park, Liam caked in mud, Ellie wearing her dad's shoes and grinning like a mini hurricane. I laughed again, not a mocking or hollow laugh, but a genuine one, the kind that reminds you of who you truly are. I resumed running, reading, and cooking more. I also joined a community group. Nothing drastic. A man is piecing himself back together without regret. One evening, several weeks subsequently, I retrieved an antique box from the wardrobe. Inside lay a photograph of Jessica and me, a time when we both thought our relationship would endure perpetually. I scrutinized it for a considerable length of time, yet not anger, sorrow, or yearning surfaced. Instead, a feeling of detachment overcame me. That version of her, that version of me, they no longer exist. We were not without faults. Hers were more prominent, harsher, and irreversible. However, I was not innocent either. I ceased to appear in significant ways, stopped listening to her before she began confiding in someone else. Yet none of that excused infidelity. She didn't waver, she leaped, and now I understood. If you find yourself in a relationship that seems amiss, do not disregard it. Do not wait for indisputable evidence or written confirmation. Speak out, ask tough questions, listen attentively, and if you detect dishonesty, don't chase after it. Don't shout, don't plead, rise up, leave. Silence can carry its own weight. For trust, once shattered as such, seldom returns whole. Instead, it leaves an indelible mark, transforming you fundamentally. Sometimes this very transformation is precisely what is sought.